everybody,
Hello.
and welcome back to The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
You've been out of it for 5 or 6 days, or maybe no days at all. Maybe we're still in The Matrix, and now
We've never left.
in The Matrix. So today we are talking about the much maligned and highly divisive sequel to the movie The Matrix.
It is?
Oh, yes. When this came out...
I know nothing about
you
stuff
don't...
like this.
Okay.
I don't know anything.
When this movie came out, people were very upset about it. Now,
Wow.
of course, there are defenders and there's people who've really liked it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't like this movie. Even today, a lot of people don't like this movie.
What about critics?
I mean, I'd say fairly mixed. And I don't know if it's reached the point yet where people are like revisiting. Maybe that'll happen, because a lot of times movies come out, people don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And they have negative thoughts, and that's okay. Sometimes a movie, you just don't like it. But sometimes people go back, 20 years later, and they kind of reevaluate it. I don't think that that's happened with these two movies.
Oh, okay.
But Matrix 2 and 3 are historically like examples of, a fantastic movie.
So is like no one excited for the new movie?
Everyone's excited for the new movie.
That's weird.
Well, I think a lot of people are excited at the possibility of them.
Oh.
Like there's so much promise in this universe.
Yeah.
That it's exciting to revisit it.
Yeah, so anytime there's an announcement, it's like, okay, what are they going to do this time? Just like people were probably excited for the third one.
Exactly.
Although it came out like right after. But yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people who were on the fence with Reloaded were like, okay, but in a few months, it's all going to come together.
Yeah.
And then Matrix Revolutions is even more divisive.
Oh.
And even less people like that movie. So I think a lot of people, when they go back, they look at this movie and they go, all the Zion stuff is really weird and bad.
Yeah.
And they say, there's too much special effects. It's crazy. Bad movie. I think that's a lot of people's opinions.
Okay.
Now, today, I don't know exactly where you're going to head with this.
Yeah.
But I am going to argue the exact opposite of that opinion.
Okay.
Because I think this movie rules.
Okay.
And I do think there are some serious problems with this movie, but the things I like about this movie make me forget until I rewatch the movie about all the things I don't like about it.
Yeah.
So anytime I think about Matrix Reloaded, I'm always like, that movie frickin' rules.
Yeah.
And then I watch it and I'm like, ooh, this first half hour is kind of rough though. But then once you're back in the Matrix, I love it. So we'll get there though. We're not there yet, of course. Jordan, what do you want to say? Do you want to set up anything on your thoughts?
I think this is my second full-time rewatch of this one. And I think I'm kind of with you.
Wait, second rewatch or second watch?
Watch.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, because that would make it my third.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'm kind of with you. Like, the action is so cool. And I wish I could have seen this at the time it came out, because of course the special effects are dated now, but it's like I appreciate them because I'm sure that it pushed it forward so much.
Yeah.
And then, but there are like huge problems I have with this movie, like huge. So,
yeah. And I am very excited to hear what you specifically get in on, because when we turned off this movie, we didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. Do you want to say anything off the bat, like as a framework of the movie? Or
I think the Zion stuff is a huge swing and a miss.
Mm-hmm.
Like huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard because like they had to do something with it.
Yeah.
Or it feels like they had to do something with it. And I think I'm just glad that that's the first part of the movie.
Yeah.
So we can just get it over with, because it's so boring. And a lot of the performances within the people there, I'm just not a fan of.
Yeah.
And some of the world building's just not. It's like the sets were cool. I like the sets, but like some of the world building within all of it, it's just kind of like, I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah. It's a bit of a head scratcher, the Zion stuff.
Yeah. And every time, it's like, funny enough, when they're in the real world, it's just like, oh, I can't wait till they go into the Matrix, which is kind of ironic because we're trying to break out of it.
Right.
But it is like, can't we just go back in the Matrix?
Exactly.
Which is probably not what you would like the audience to necessarily think.
Yeah.
But I think on the whole, it's good. I think the story is good. But yeah, there's just some huge problems with it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was my, I think, third time watching it.
Okay.
And each time that I've watched it, I've really enjoyed it. So it's the sort of thing where, like, when I hear complaints about it, I do get it.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, yeah, I just don't see it that way though.
Yeah.
I think it's like extremely underrated, and like incredibly underrated movie for how philosophical and insane it gets. I think, and maybe I don't know, but I just feel like the architect scene is almost as good as anything in the first movie.
Yeah, I like that part.
Like that scene and what it presents, and the ending of this movie is just like, yeah, okay, maybe you didn't like Zion, but did you see the end? The end was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do remember when I showed this movie to you, because it was at my parents' house when we were house sitting last year. When it got to the end and the guy woke up, you were like, "That's how they ended this movie?"
But I don't think I knew that the second one, the third one, came out that soon after.
Yeah, and we had a pretty extensive conversation because you were just like, "That is such a bad decision." And I think watching it now, yes, but watching it then, I think that because this movie, for those who don't know, this movie came out in May, and Revolutions came out the same year. I can't remember the exact date.
Okay.
So I don't really dig a big cliffhanger ending like that in the movie.
Yeah.
When it's that much of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You know, like Marvel usually leaves like some dangling threads, but I usually don't mind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, it's a hard cut, and it's like, it says to be concluded.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But it's also like, you know, Back to the Future, as far as I know, was the first series that had a shared production of two movies. Because they filmed Back to the Future 2 and 3 at the same time. And then Lord of the Rings, they filmed all of them at the same time. And that would be around this time. And so this is really only the second/third ever where there's a shared production. So, and if in a few years, Pirates will do the same thing.
What?
Remember, in a few years, Pirates of the Caribbean
thought you meant like
does it.
in our present future. It's like, really?
Okay. I know. I hope
yeah.
that franchise is dead. We don't need to cover any more Pirates movies,
yeah,
I hope.
Please.
But okay, let me jump into some of the crew. It's the exact same crew from the first movie, down to Yoon Woo Ping doing the martial arts again. So, Wachowskis, Bill Pope, cinematography. I'm forgetting the composer's name, but it is the same composer. The score in this movie, get out of town. Really good.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yes, the movie comes out May 15th, 2003. And this just goes to show you how much people anticipated this movie. So between Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, it had a combined budget of $150 million.
Wow.
Which is actually pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
2 movies, 150. Although it's always hard to know for sure those breakdowns, but I'm pretty sure it's that number. But people wanted to see this so bad because it made $281 million domestic, and it made $738 worldwide.
That's crazy.
So you can see why when I forgot again, when Lily Wachowski, I think it's Lily, not Lana. Lily, what? No, it's Lana. When Lana Wachowski says, "Hey, I'd like to do a Matrix 4," Warner Brothers is like, "Okay."
Yeah. Right.
There's no hesitation in that sentence. But yeah, do you want to do any actors before I jump into some notes?
So we have Helmut Bacchus. Bacate.
Helmut. Whoa.
It plays the architect. He is also in Hacksaw Ridge, Jack Irish, Out of the Shadows, Happy Feet. Monica Bellucci plays Persephone, which is the girl.
Yes.
Yeah. The girl. She's in Melina, Do Not Disturb, Shoot 'Em Up.
The Passion of the Christ. She's Mary Magdalene in The Passion of the Christ.
Oh, okay. And then Randall Duck Kim plays the Keymaster. Keykeeper? Keymaster?
Keymaker.
He's got a ton of stuff. But Dragon Ball Z, Kung Fu Panda, John Wick.
Cool.
Remember John Wick, guys.
Yeah, we'll get back to him.
Harry Lennox plays the commander of Zion, of like the general or whatever. He is in Man of Steel, but I don't believe we covered him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's the general of the U.S. Army in Man of Steel.
Yeah, which means he's also in BVS.
Yeah.
And then he's also in Ray and Blacklist and a million other things. And then Harold Perrineau is Link. He is in Romeo plus Juliet, 28 Days Later, The Edge, among other things. And then Colin Chow, or Chu, he is the Cypher. Sorry, the guy before the Oracle.
Yes.
That Neo fights with. He's in the Forbidden Kingdom, Crazy Fist, and Marco Polo. And that's who I have right now, but I did remember someone else. So you
Jada Pinkett.
We've covered her.
We have?
Scream.
Oh, yeah. We covered her like not that long ago.
Trying to find the French guy.
Yes. Well, while you're doing that, I have some interesting notes on the actors and some potentials that could have happened.
Okay.
So the architect, they originally approached Mr. Sean Connery to be the architect. And he was reading it, and he said, I don't understand what this is. He turned it down, and instead he stars in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which famously ends his career.
Oh, so I did not know that. That it famously ended his career.
I mean, I'm sure he did other things, but that movie was such a bomb.
That movie played on TV a lot, and I always loved anything I saw as a kid.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've never seen the whole thing.
Yeah, that's based on an Alan Moore comic. I know. But yeah, that pretty much is like nail in the coffin on Sean Connery being a movie star.
Wow.
So he should have done this.
Wow. Sorry. So Lambert Wilson plays Merovingian. He is in Catwoman, Timeline, Benedetta, Shuttlecock, Calls, among other things.
Yeah. Now, I just have to...
And he is French.
He is French, okay. It doesn't sound... He sounds like he's pretending to be French.
Maybe it's a specific dialect.
Maybe it is.
His accent's from a certain region or something.
Yeah, you're probably right. Now, it's just hard for me to look at the guy because his lip is so big, and I just stare at his lip the whole time. And hey, people are made certain ways. I don't want him to feel bad about it, but every scene he's in...
Distracting to you.
I can't...
And it became distracting for me also.
Yeah, because I pointed it out to you, and you're like, my gosh,
that's one of the issues I have with the movie, but we can get there.
Yes. The Merovingian is... I mean, I think the performance is awful.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. Well...
And if I don't get it, and I know I'm only speaking for I don't wonder what other people thought, because it's like, this makes no sense. I can't, not that I can't understand what he's saying because of his accent, just because of I don't know what he's saying. Mm-hmm. Therefore, why is this in the movie?
This movie's so weird because it truly has so many issues, but it's maybe the most, that I can think of off the top of my head, the most movie, the movie that's riddled with the most weirdness and issues that I would maybe argue is a masterpiece.
Oh, okay. That's weird.
Like it's the most like...
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, so Sean Connery turned it down, and then a couple of other people I wanted to tell you about was Jet Li. They approached him to be Cypher.
Yeah.
But he was like, the role's not big enough for me. Granted, he's right.
Yeah.
And then they got Michelle Yeoh, but then she wasn't able to do it, I think, because of scheduling.
Cool. Yeah.
Now, one thing I was curious about was where the heck did Marcus Chong go? Good old Tank from the first movie.
Yeah.
Well, there's two stories here.
Okay.
One is the Wachowskis and Warner Brothers, where they said that he had asked to come back, and he was offered $250,000 to do both sequels, but he said, no, you have to give me $1 million.
Okay.
And they were like, no. So they just had him killed off, because that's a lot of money.
Killed off. His character in canon is dead?
Yeah, his character is dead.
Do they say that at one point in the movie?
They do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It is kind of like a throwaway line, though.
Oh,
like if you're not paying attention. I was like specifically...
There's so many names, and they're all not real names, so it's gonna be hard to
Which in certain circumstances makes it really easy, and in others makes it really hard.
Yeah.
But Chong apparently like sued the company and said that they had a written contract that he would be in the sequels. Whoa. And he has a documentary on YouTube, on his YouTube, that's called The Marcus Chong Story. And he claims that they just like totally threw him to the side, didn't let him be in the movie. And he goes so far as to say that they sent an assassin to his home. And he says that they blackballed him, and that's why he pretty much has not had a career after The Matrix. Now, the fact that he throws in the assassin thing makes me think maybe...
Not the most credible.
But
wow.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And it does make me think they probably made the right call just being like, the character died, whatever. Because it sounds like, according to Wachowskis, he was threatening to them.
Oh, wow.
So, anyway, there's that. And then I got a cast of characters to tell you about. So that, well, no, maybe yes. So, as we know, a lot of these characters hold significance in other mythologies or things of that nature. So, I looked up some of the stuff on matrix101.com, of course. And this is what it had on the Merovingian.
Okay.
The Merovingian was presumably named after the Merovingian dynasty because it is a power from a distant period in French history, just as the Merovingian himself is a power from a distant period in the Matrix's history, who has adopted a French persona. Additionally, the Merovingians ruled what is now France during the early Middle Ages, a period commonly known as the Dark Ages and popularly held to be a period of barbarism, superstition, and feudalism, and it may be that this name is intended to associate the Merovingian with his personal army of supernatural beings with these qualities. Huh. So that's cool. Yeah. Niobe, who's played by Jada Pinkett Smith, is Niobe was a female Greek mythological character in the Iliad. In that epic story, she is described as a woman who compared herself to a goddess.
Okay.
Persephone, who is the
French,
the Merovingian's wife, was the daughter of Demeter and Zeus in Greek myth. Hades abducted her and took her to the underworld, but she was eventually allowed to return to the surface for part of the year. Her mother, Demeter, in her grief, neglected her duties, and the earth became cold and barren. So Zeus allowed Persephone to come home for only 6 months of the year. This marked the change of the seasons. Cool.
'Tis true.
'Tis true. So those are a couple things that I wanted to point out before we get into it.
Great.
And then finally, just a couple more. Movie was filmed from March 1st, 2001 to August 21st, 2002, because they filmed 2 movies. Yep. They made a 1.5 mile freeway for this movie.
That's crazy.
On a decommissioned naval airbase.
Cool.
And 97% of the materials from the sets in these movies were recycled.
Wow.
And tons, like literally tons, of wood was sent to Mexico for low-income housing.
Wow. That's the kind of stuff you want to hear because with movie productions, you just hear the budgets, and you sometimes when you see behind-the-scenes stuff, it's just like, where does all of this go when it's done?
Right.
And sometimes you just like, this is terrible. Like, how is this sustainable to the earth and to people and stuff like that? And I hope that happens more often than I think.
I hope so too. The fact that it's a notable thing, though, is probably it doesn't happen as often as we'd hope.
Way to be a Debbie Downer.
But you never, I mean, a lot of it, a lot of sets and stuff are just recycled within other movies, which is a good use of it as well.
Yeah.
But, these sets are so particular. It's not like you can just be like, we're going to film Scream 5 on the Matrix set, or maybe you could.
We haven't seen it yet.
And during this movie, they developed the visual effect called universal capture, where they take samples and take pictures of a person's face so that they can digitally use it. So this is like
Thanos.
Yep, exactly. This is like the beginning of that technology.
Cool.
And around this time too, there's also the Lord of the Rings technology that's going on. So visual effects from 99 to like 2005 completely transform.
Yeah.
For better and for worse in a lot of ways. And that's what I got.
Great.
Should we jump into the plot?
Yeah.
So the movie begins, and we see a vision of the future. Mm-hmm. Trinity is on a cool motorcycle. Mm-hmm. She jumps it into a building.
Like a parking garage.
Yeah. Huge explosion.
Mm-hmm. She starts fighting.
Yeah.
And then she's being chased by agents.
Uh-huh.
She jumps out a window.
I'm riveting.
They're shooting each other, and the bullets are doing that Donnie Darko time travel wormhole thing in the air, and they're shooting at each other like crazy, and one of the bullets gets Trinity, and then Neo wakes up.
Yeah.
Super stylized. This still feel very comic booky.
Yeah.
So I imagine they continue to do the storyboarding, graphic novel stuff.
It's funny, though, this scene. So, again, prefacing, I'm going to actually critique a lot of stuff in this movie, but I love it. But the movie starts, and, you see, like, the raining, digital code, and it goes around that for so long.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And you're kind of like, okay. It feels like they're kind of doing a victory lap, like, get ready.
Yeah.
You're about to watch another Matrix. And then when she is falling down this building, it's long.
It's long. It's pretty long.
And I was just kind of like, whoa.
They really want you to remember this, something that's being foretold.
It sort of feels like we just want to make sure that if anyone was still in line to get popcorn, they make it in time for Neo to wake up.
Maybe.
But then Neo wakes up.
Yep.
Next to Trinity. And basically we find out a couple of things. We find out, like, the real world story is the Sentinels, the robots, are drilling down to Zion, and they have 72 hours.
Yeah.
Before they will get there and kill everyone.
Yeah.
So that is the real world story. And we get introduced to Niobe, and we find out.
So wait. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, so you're talking about when they have that meeting in the Matrix, all the captains together.
Yeah.
And they're talking about that stuff.
Pretty right at the beginning there.
Yeah. It's one of those things for me where I was like, they'll probably explain this again. It's just, sometimes I have a hard time when it's like so many new faces. How can I pay attention to what they're talking about?
Yeah.
That's a me thing.
Well, and I think, like any good sci-fi, it's not gonna just totally all click the first time you watch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're gonna be like, okay, I think I got the overall story. And then as you watch it more, you key in on like characters and specific plot beats. And so there's like this meeting of all the generals of the humans that are alive. Yeah. And the Sentinels are coming. And then is that when
they go back to Zion?
But before that, Agent Smith shows up. And is that when? That's not when they have the big brawl.
There's like a cut. Oh yeah, so like there are other people in the Matrix. Well, I don't remember if it happens then, but it does happen in like the beginning. So like these two guys are waiting for the phone to ring to go back to the real world to be woken up.
Yeah.
One of them goes, and then another one is stopped by Agent Smith, who becomes him.
Yeah. And this, for how significant this turns out to be, I did not catch this until this time around. Like that was the same guy that he becomes later in the movie. So like every time I've watched a movie, I've been a little confused. Like, who's this random guy?
So here's a question too. When they have that meeting, Neo like goes off because he's like sensing agents are showing up.
Yeah.
And he goes to the door.
Yeah.
And or someone knocks on the door and like this is for Neo and it's the earpiece.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's from Agent Smith.
And it says it's given with the note, or someone says, tell Neo he set Agent Smith free.
Yeah.
Is that your question about it?
I guess so. That's what that means, right?
Yes. What is so cool, and again, this is more like I'm getting it now.
Yeah.
And that I think that's one of the problems, kind of. Thing I love and a problem with the movie is like a lot of this stuff, they're just kind of expecting you to just keep up. Yeah. And it's kind of like, wait, what does that mean he's set free? And they kind of get into it, but they kind of don't. So the idea is that Agent Smith is now disconnected from the Matrix and he's acting on his own accord.
Yeah.
So he is now literally a computer virus.
Yeah.
And so throughout the movie, he is infecting his virus in other agents and other people. Yeah. And he's like...
he's got his own agenda.
Trying to destroy the Matrix and humanity.
Yeah.
And so that is so freaking cool. I love that.
Yeah, I like that. That's great.
It's sort of like there's a lot of subtext, you know, it's like this is not a pull out your phone and scroll through Instagram while you're watching this kind of movie.
No.
But yeah, so he's a computer virus.
Great. Well, I knew that much, but yeah.
And so I think, so then Neo starts fighting one of the agents.
Yep.
And he kind of goes, upgrades. Love that. Classic Keanu kind of thing. And then they finally, he escapes and they go to Zion.
Back. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious what you think about this. There's a lot of stuff, especially in this Zion sequence, where they are just kind of throwing like 1,000 things at you. So we're introduced to like a ton of new characters.
Yep. And
there's things like this boyish looking person comes up.
Yep.
And he's like, Neo, I'm so glad you saved me. And that's something we didn't see. And then later in the movie, it's kind of a quick line where he's like, you were the one who awakened me.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of that, especially in the Zion sequence, where you're just like, yeah, okay, Morpheus liked him and Niobe were together, but then now the general and Niobe are together. And then this guy's the ruler of the council, this old man, and then we're all in this... there's just a lot.
Yeah.
What do you think of the dump of information?
How else do you do it? I'm sure the people have come up with plenty of other ideas.
Yeah.
But I do like the kid who feels like he's in debt to Neo for the rest of his life because of what he did. Even though Neo was like, it's not that like you're putting too much weight on it.
Yeah.
It's like he represents everyone.
Yeah.
Else. So that I think is good. And then I think it's cool throughout the movie too, especially at Zion. Not everyone believes in Neo, and I really like that.
That's cool.
And it's just kind of like the last movie, but it's even hit harder in this movie, where like Morpheus, you didn't see this in the first movie, but in this movie he is seen as someone who is kind of a crackpot.
Yeah.
And is like has blind faith.
Yeah.
And a lot of people at Zion don't really have the same view.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do too. I think that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
And like that scene that comes right away, pretty soon after what we're talking about, is when Neo and Trinity are like, "Oof, we'll finally be alone. Let's head to the room." And he gets to the hallway and it's just lined with people who are like handing Neo things and saying like
offerings. Yeah.
It's this Messiah thing.
Yeah.
It's like the Palm Sunday almost.
Yeah.
Is like they're setting down stuff that he can walk on. Not literally.
Yeah. But they're giving like food and valuables.
Yeah, and they're asking him to like, take this so that their son will be safe in battle.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very interesting.
All of the Messiah, the one stuff is really cool because what the other thing that this movie is about that I love is it is subverting expectations for what a Messiah character is.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie, the architect goes, yeah, you're the one because it's programmed in the Matrix and there's been 5 others. You're not the one. There is no the one. So they're taking like one of the most common tropes of fantasy and one of the something that's like innate in human nature, this idea that there will be one that will save us kind of a thing. And then they're just going, yeah, but it's not that. And what I love about that is that I mean that's a reason why I love this movie, because it's like exploring if we took that literary idea and that human idea and we said, but it's not true.
Right.
Although, funny enough, it does become true.
Kind of like the first movie, too.
Yeah, by the end of the next movie. Mm-hmm. But I think you can argue it doesn't, because they restart the Matrix at the end of Revolutions. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
We'll get into that. They form a truce.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Which is why I feel like a Matrix 4 actually could be fine.
Got it. Okay.
Because the Matrix was never destroyed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
I can tell that you peeked a little more.
I do more questions about the architect stuff, but I'll just wait till we get there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this whole part, it just is a slog. And part of it is just, they're just laying groundwork for the stuff. And I just don't know if it's written very well. And it's just, everyone is so robotic.
And it's
funny
so
enough.
earnest.
And yeah, and it's just so, oh man, it's just boring. Everyone's so straight-faced, and you have this like counsel. Like, you have things that are like, "Oh, great! I didn't want to go to a movie to watch politics." Like this, it's just not. It's not interesting at all to me.
Yeah, and that is why I think that, like, I think that the beginning of this movie does a disservice to the rest of the movie, because I think a lot of people watch it, and even when we were watching it, I was kind of like, "Oh, I didn't remember the beginning of this movie being such a slog."
Yeah.
But it's like the movie really kind of tests your patience.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're like, I don't know if this is good, then it gets amazing.
Yeah.
And so if you lose it by that point and you're not willing, like this movie, you have to trust that it's going to be good. You just have to trust the filmmakers. And if you're not willing to trust them, then you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
That would be my thought on that, I think. So, because
it's hard though, because this is a long part of the movie.
I know it's like a half hour at least.
Yeah.
And it is long and it feels long. And I think it's the design of Zion is cool and it's smart.
Yeah.
But I really think that I don't like the costumes a lot. But I
don't like the costumes.
I get because they're trying to be like, this is homemade, this is the best we can do as humanity. And I like the thought, but it's not very fun to look at.
Some of it looks like a choice, though, in a weird way.
It's
like some people are really well dressed, and then some people are wearing clothes that are tattered. Like,
yeah.
And I don't even know if it's a class. Maybe it's a class thing.
I think there is that implication that there's a class structure here.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems a little like inconsistent. And it does make sense that like it's like they basically live in a machine.
Yeah.
Because it's like all that's left. So
well, this is one of the best things. Yeah, is that conversation with the councilman.
Well, I don't know if it's one of the best things, but it's I like that it's not, because I can understand if it's like all organic in some way.
Yeah.
And I like that they have that cave that they're in too, of the stalagmites or stalactites. Both, one or the other.
I'm sure they had both.
That was a cool set too, and it made sense. But yeah.
So like the scene I was talking about, it's not necessarily the best scene. It's funny because the old councilman, he's the kind of actor where I look at him and I'm like, oh, you are such a great actor. But the performance, I'm like,
it's not for the right movie.
I don't know that he is all that good.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's okay, we'll get to that. But like, don't really understand what he said and why it's important and what effect it had on Neo in the future of this movie and how it helped him develop as a character. And so it's like, why did we have this? Just so that like it's a counselor and they're
Are you
part
talking
of
about when they're talking by themselves?
Yeah.
So I can answer that, at least what I believe.
Yeah.
So the the other thing this movie's about is control.
Yeah.
And it's all about control. Who's controlling who? Is it even possible to have control? And in this scene, Neo is walking around. He talks to the counselor. There is that great world building thing though, where the counselor says, I don't sleep much more than 4 hours a night. I slept the first 7 years of my life. I feel like that's enough. Love that. But he says they're looking at the engineering room, which is all these machines, very steampunk.
Yep.
I don't think that they're electrical circuits. And they discuss this whole thing where it's like, what do they say? They still use machines, but the machines control them because, or do they control the machines? And Neo's like, yes, we control these machines because we can turn them off. And then he says, but if you turn them off, we would die because we wouldn't have life support.
Yeah.
So what is control? Can you even have it? So the idea of this is setting up just the whole concept of what the whole movie's about.
Okay.
Whether you thought it was good or not, that's a different matter, but that's like what they're trying to convey.
Okay.
And I think there's also this element of like yin and yang, where it's like machines aren't necessarily bad, humans aren't necessarily bad, but if they're not in balance, then things can get bad really quick.
Okay, fine, it gets a pass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Now, there is a moment in this movie that is insane, because this movie is largely devoid of any humor, but Link, who is now the
pilot, right?
What do they call it? It's not the pilot.
Programmer.
Yeah, he like sends people in and out of the Matrix. He's what Tank was.
Yeah.
He walks into his house.
Yeah.
And the first thing he says as he's opening the doors, he goes, "Where's my puss?" And then he looks and he sees that
there are children there.
Yeah, there are children there, and he doesn't finish his sentence.
Yeah.
Now, it feels like, as was discussed in one of the best blank check episodes, Matrix Reloaded, it feels like then you cut to a cat, right? Maybe because he's about like...
I've never thought that.
Well, it's just so weird because it's like, who calls their other that?
That guy, Link. Link does it.
But see, and then here's another like exposition dump where we find out that the woman that Link is with is the sister of Tank, I believe.
Yep. And the other guy.
And so Tank and Dozer were killed, and she talks about how they died.
Yep.
And then she gives him this like bracelet.
She
thing.
like doesn't want him to be part of this crew because her brothers died. And I think she's like unsure on if she believes in if Neo's the one or if that's even a thing. And Link is also unsure of it too, but he does feel a call to duty to just serve.
Yeah.
So he's a part of this, and it's like, sorry, this is my call, and I hope you can understand that.
Yeah.
And she like gives him a rosary or something for good luck.
Yeah. He's like, I don't believe in that stuff, and she says, but I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, but it's also, again, if you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss like 8 things every scene.
It's definitely hard to make a second movie, and you have like almost a completely new cast.
I know.
When you just want the story to go.
Well, and it stinks because in the next 2 movies, Morpheus doesn't really have anything to do, so he just kind of hangs out and is like, I believe. Because at the end of Matrix, he's finished his emotional and character journey.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of lose Morpheus.
Yeah, it sucks that like basically the cast died in the first movie.
Yeah.
And one of them couldn't come back. And so like, because I'm just thinking of like Lord of the Rings, because that's ensemble.
Yeah.
And in the first movie, it's all about getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the next 2 movies, we meet a lot of new people, but we already know our established crew so well that it doesn't feel also just a perfect story. But
it does benefit from J.R.R. Tolkien didn't go, okay, I wrote the Fellowship of the Ring and it's a complete story. Let's see if anyone likes it and I'll make more maybe.
That's true.
Like this is that
true.
classic thing where this is not a planned trilogy. They make the first movie and then they get greenlit to make 2 more.
Yeah.
And they have to figure out how to do it. That's always tough. But anyway, so there's all the Zion stuff. Now there is the wildest scene in this series. One of the weirder scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Morpheus speaks at the gathering of the humans, and he says, we need to be truthful, but I believe Neo's the one. Here's the deal, guys. The Sentinels are coming, but let's show them, let's rumble these caves and show them that what humanity really is.
Rally.
Yeah, and there's all these like drums and stuff like that, and they start, it's a pep rally. These drums start playing, and it's this cool, like, interesting beats and natural sounding instruments and stuff. And then it kind of transitions into this moment where it builds and builds, and then it drops into an 808 kick drum. You got the hi-hat, you got synthesizers, and it's like tink, 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 and someone jumps in the air.
Yeah. And
then it's this weird orgy scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not that graphic, but it's a scene that it feels more graphic than it is.
It's so confusing, but it also isn't confusing. Like, it makes sense,
but it's very laughable.
I think it is very laughable, and I think what they're trying to do is they're humans. Like, we're humans, we're primal because we are juxtaposed with these machines and being in this matrix thing, and like being in this primal state of like this is a true experience. And it's together. Yeah. And then you have Neo and Trinity alone having their own primal experience. And it is so long.
And it's intercut between the both.
It's intercut and it's so long. And
there seems like kind of graphic for an action movie that...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also
so funny.
It's an action movie, so you're probably going to have some sex stuff in it. But the first movie had none of it.
I know.
So it is funny that this is just
I mean, they're cashing their blank check on this movie right here. And it's just funny that I wonder if this scene was studio noted to death or if the studio just said whatever. Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I wonder if there's a crazier version of it but there's probably not. But it's sort of funny, and I think this is the point where if you've not liked anything before, you're done. You're like, this is laughable, this is stupid. But then there's and even there I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is so weird. Is this any good?
Yeah.
And then it's after this scene things start getting really good.
Yeah.
And so you have to just kind of go, okay, we got to get through the orgy scene and then the movie takes off.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Okay, so we got all that stuff. And then now they're like, okay, we have to talk to the Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I think is just kind of interesting and funny about the movie is, of course, The Matrix 1 is very philosophical, but it feels like the philosophy is, how do I explain it? It feels like when they were writing it, the philosophy was coming as they wrote.
Okay.
This movie feels a little more like, what if we did this?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're putting philosophy and narrative and plot and ideas before the actual story.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think that's part of why the first part is so weird. And then the next part is also, it's like this is an action movie, but we're going to try to make it the most philosophical, ponderous action movie you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and outdo ourselves when you were thinking a lot during the last movie.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's why a lot of people don't like this. But then the human Mr. Smith, who's in the body of someone named Bane, he's about to attack Neo, who's getting ready to leave.
Wait, well, you were not even talking about what the Oracle said?
No, we're not to the Oracle yet. They haven't left yet.
Oh.
He's about to...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're still in Zion.
Yeah. I like that he was cutting himself.
I know,
and
very weird.
Watching himself bleed.
Oh, yeah, because he wouldn't have had that experience.
Any experience. He has no experience of anything human. So pretty cool. And so he was gonna, I guess, assassinate Neo, but he is stopped because someone's like running up to him.
Yeah, it's the kid he saved that we didn't see.
Yeah, and he gives him a spoon from another kid.
Yes.
Harkening back to the first movie.
Yes.
And then they go.
And now the movie is in full gear. From here to the end, amazing. Except the Merovingian. But this is just such an asterisk movie. It's so funny. So Neo goes to Seraph, who is going to test him in a fight to see if you don't truly know someone until you fought them. Yeah. Now, I have to do a little side note on Seraph. Seraph is a challenge handshake authentication protocol, which is a type of login.
Oh, cool.
So he is basically a login window.
Yeah.
So I think
pretty
that's
cool. That's fun.
And he also notices when he looks at Seraph, he sees that he's an orange matrix color instead of the green that everything else is.
Seraph sees that, Neo sees that about him.
Yeah. And I actually don't remember what's significant about that.
I think they say.
I think I think it's that he knows that he is not an organic creature. Like he's not a human.
Got it.
So he knows he's in the system.
Oh, okay.
Because then when he sees the Oracle, he's like, I see that you're a part of the Matrix.
So it's like a thing he's developed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's the reading. But I know that he does say that to the Oracle.
Yeah.
We have the Oracle. It's still Gloria Foster.
Yeah.
Which I had thought that she died, but she dies before they can film her scenes in the next movie.
Yeah.
So there's that clarification. And they have this conversation where he's basically like, if you're part of the Matrix, how do I know that you're not just setting me up?
Yeah.
And you're here to make a choice. You're here to find out. Yeah. So she says like, well, you're not here to make a choice about if you're the one. You're here to find out why you made a choice.
Yeah.
And there's, again, choice, control. We're talking about all these themes. I'm kind of forgetting their exact conversation.
Me too, but that is the big part.
Yeah.
Just not the specific part.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit peppered in there about like, how can you trust anything kind of, or at least there's that, you have to have faith at a certain point. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they also mention how vampires and wolves are programs that are hiding from the original
so basically
source.
Folklore monsters.
Yeah, which Jordan said, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because it makes me think of too, like, it's almost as if she is saying humans in their consciousness assign those older programs with those monsterish features.
Yeah.
As if it's distractions, or it's like they're filling in the blanks of like they're scary and they're old and they mean this, which is kind of like what monsters are.
Yeah.
Like older ones, like they often represent something, like vampires represent like lust. And
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fun.
Yeah, and we'll find out like with the twins later, who are like ghosts.
Yeah.
That like
I call them ghouls.
Sure. They like there's these, well, I guess we should save the exiles. We'll talk about the exiles in a little bit.
Okay.
So I have to admit to the audience that we took a break and I rewatched the scene where he talks to the Oracle. And funny enough, without being as eloquent as the script is, we said all that really needed to be said from that scene. So, she's a part of the machine world. How do I trust you? Is this another form of control? That sums up the scene. But what that leads into is she tells him that he needs to go see the see the Merovingian and get the keymaker, and the keymaker is going to take him to the source. The source being
of the Matrix.
Yeah, like he can power it down. That's the implication. But then, before he does that, we have the Mr. Smith fight scene.
Mm-hmm. Agent Smith.
Agent Smith, yes. Yeah. He's always saying Mr. Anderson, and I had that happen last episode.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the fight scene. What do you think of this fight scene, Jordan?
Love it. It's so cool. Affects it all.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's a very interesting the whole time. I think they use it well. The choreography is good, where you have a lot of guys fighting one guy, but it doesn't look like all the other guys are standing back, not doing anything.
There was one shot I noticed that in, but only one,
which is usually
crazy.
They're like getting back up because he just knocked them over.
Yeah, and usually in a fight scene like this, you're usually seeing people who are kind of like walking back and forth in the background, pretending like they're getting ready to fight.
Yeah.
But that's probably Yuen Wu-ping.
Yeah,
thinking
probably
ahead. But then the fight, you can call it either way. You can call it devolving or evolves into pretty much just a CGI fest.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you're going to do, a lot of CG in a movie, if you're going to do it this creatively, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Of course, it hasn't aged the best.
Yeah.
But we're also dealing with, they're literally computer programs, and they're in a computer. So if you need that to keep you through the scene, that's an option.
Yep.
But what I found really weird is, so this movie comes out in 2003, and watching that fight scene, I saw throughout the last 20 years in my head all the negative effects that fight scene has had on action movies.
Oh, okay.
Because I could just see, at the time, we're talking, this is cool, and I'm not blaming the movie for this, but I think every action filmmaker, every Marvel movie, every DC movie, they saw this movie and they were like, oh, like the camera doesn't have to follow the rules of what real cameras go through. The actors don't have to. We can do anything.
Yeah.
And so fight scenes from like 2003 on are very, they do rely on the CG.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those moments where it's like, if you could go back, maybe you'd grab the Wachowskis and go, hey, just so you know, after you make this scene, it's going to kind of ruin action movies. Are you sure you want to do this?
Prevent them?
What's that?
You would want to prevent them from doing this?
I would just want to warn them.
They probably would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Still going to do the scene. But
it's the kind of thing where people learn like the wrong lessons from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's cool stuff in it that is CG. Like when
I think so. When he has the metal bar.
I was gonna say, and he runs.
That's fun.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's this moment I really love where this woman walks into the courtyard and she drops her groceries. She turns into
Agent Smith.
No, she turns into an agent from the Matrix.
Yeah.
And then Agent Smith walks up to that Matrix agent, stabs it with his hand, and the person goes, you, and he goes, me.
Yeah.
And then it turns into him, and he goes, me. And then when it turns into him, it goes, me too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's so over the top, but I love it.
Yeah. And it gets to, like, there's hundreds of them, of Agent Smith.
Yeah.
Fighting, and then Neo flies away.
I think that's the most disappointing part of it, is he's like, okay, I'm done fighting them. Like, as far as a resolution, it's kind of like, oh, I wish there was...
Oh, I'm fine with it, because
something more
because it's like his first actual face-to-face with Agent Smith again.
Uh-huh.
And he learns in this moment, really, that he's changed. And he can't handle it right now. Okay. And there are bigger fish to fry.
I'll take it because I want to like it.
It works for me.
That works for me too.
It's like you're halfway through the video game, but you're gonna come back to him.
Okay, I will take that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now we have the second weirdest part of the movie. We show up at a restaurant.
Yep.
And we meet the Merovingian, who we've touched on briefly.
Yeah.
But now we're gonna get into him a little bit more.
Yeah. So he talks about cause and effect.
Causality.
To such a degree that I don't really understand the point that he's making.
Once again, he's making a point about control.
Yeah.
Cause and effect.
Because he uses that girl as an example,
right,
which is like, okay. So basically, he's illustrating cause and effect, who has control. So he, I guess, designed this piece of cake.
Yes.
Or programmed it, and it's so perfect that it makes this woman have an orgasm.
And it turns into the Matrix, zooms into her crotch, and there's an explosion.
Yeah.
It is.
Why did they use that as an illustration?
I don't know. It's very weird. It's weird. It's so funny too.
And his illustration is like, I made that happen because I programmed that cake.
Yeah. I think on a control level, he's saying like even the things that we think are our own experience and cause our own causality, like cause certain things to happen to us, those are also engineered. So nothing in your life is by your own choice or something that you can control. That's like what he's illustrating with the piece of cake.
Yeah.
In the funniest way possible.
Yeah.
It is, I think it's laughable.
Yeah.
I wish he'd done it a different way, or even if he didn't do it a different way, if they had an actor that was playing it like, I mean, even a merciful like 10% less insane as this guy is playing it, I think it could maybe work. I don't think there's a version of the cake scene
so
working.
Much, and he's kind of monotonous. So I like.
I love to curse in French. And you're like, I gotta watch this with subtitles. This is crazy.
It's like a Quentin Tarantino-esque moment monologue that didn't work for me.
Yes. Yeah, and of course, this goes without saying, we're not critiquing the French language or people who have French accents.
No, when I'm saying I don't understand it, I'm saying I don't
performance.
understand the point he's making to the larger narrative. And I know you just explained it. But I just felt like a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because it didn't do anything. Well, that's what's funny about these complaints is the first movie, there's so much exposition. There's so much being explained the whole movie. So why should the second movie be any different? But it's almost like in the first movie, you're explaining like, theories, but they are things that have actual applications. And these are just like, this is just how I think the world works. Is how it feels.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's no practical application.
Well, and this movie, and it's weird because it's like some of the stuff is really subtle and some of it is not.
Yeah.
So a exploding cake orgasm is not subtle, but like him trying to explain causality and control is subtle.
Yeah.
So it's like there is this weird tension in the movie where it's like very obvious and also not obvious
at all. But then like with the Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus sitting there, they're just kind of like, okay, can you take us to the keymaker?
I know, they don't really react to what's going on.
Get how it affects them.
I know.
It just doesn't make sense. But
yeah,
so
I think
he like go ahead.
I think his performance is really bad.
Not a fan.
And I think a different performance, this scene could have worked.
Maybe.
The cake scene still would have been hilarious and like so shocking, but I think this scene could have worked a lot better with a different actor.
Yeah.
Who's not going like Pepe Le Pew on the scene. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway.
So he like refuses to take him to the keymaker, but his wife Persephone is like, follow me, and they're like walking, they go to the bathroom.
So,
and then this is another part where it's like, can we just get to the keymaker, please? Because she's talking about her own issues.
Uh-huh.
And then she's like, I'll take you to the keymaker if Neo kisses me like he kisses Trinity, because I don't know what love feels like anymore. And it's like, okay, fine. Let's just get this over with. It just feels forced.
Yeah, so is she a program or is she a human?
I thought she was a program.
Yeah, okay.
I thought.
This Monica Bellucci, I don't know why she's in this movie. More than I think anything else in this movie, I can't figure out the purpose of her.
Other than her husband, who is a program, has access to the keymaker, denies them access, and then she's like, "Well, I'm in an unhappy marriage, so I'm gonna do it anyway."
Yeah,
What?
but it's just weird because it feels like I don't know why these programs are having feelings in this way because I don't know. It's
almost
very
like
strange.
they're old programs, so no one really needs them anymore or cares about them. But so they're just like, well, this is the one last control I have.
Okay.
I don't know. Though. I don't know.
You kind of fixed that for me a little bit.
I don't know.
But here's what is cool though in the Merovingian scene is he introduces this idea where there are these things called exiles. And these are outdated programs that have been in other matrices or other versions of the Matrix or have been like antiquated and replaced, but they refuse to go to the source and be destroyed. So like he used to be in another Matrix, but when they came to destroy him, he like avoided it or whatever. So he's this antiquated program, and I think all of his henchmen and stuff, they're all these are like Windows 6 and Windows 5 that are hanging out. And that idea, very into.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
It is interesting.
And that's what kind of melds with like the thing the Oracle says where it's like you may see a werewolf or a ghost, but it's like an outdated program.
Yeah.
That's not functioning the way it was supposed to function. So it's basically like malware and just this stuff I love.
So she takes him to the keymaker.
Yes, she takes him to the keymaker after they have a very close up kiss that's very uncomfortable to watch for me. Mm. This scene kind of feels like I don't think this was the case, but it almost feels like a studio was like, come on, you got to sex up this movie a little bit.
Maybe.
But I don't think that they were given any limits on this.
Yeah.
So then we find the keymaker, and he's in a room just full of keys.
Yep.
So I love that. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to love that. Mm-hmm. And he is going to take him to the source now.
Oh, and earlier when he met the Oracle and they went into that hallway, that's like in between codes, or it's like you see the Matrix, the green stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's like the stuff in between. That's how I imagine it. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, no, that's
because
cool.
When they did that, or when in there,
what scene was this?
When he went to the Oracle.
Oh yeah.
When he did that on Nebuchadnezzar, they like couldn't track him anymore.
That's right. Yeah, because Link says like, "Where'd he go?"
Yeah. So, so the keymaker, they got him now, but then the dude shows up. What's that guy's name?
The Merovingian?
Yeah, he shows up with his henchmen and is like, attack.
And then we have the staircase fight scene.
Which is a very cool scene.
This scene is cool.
Clearly, as you're probably getting from my take on the movie, I just want action.
yeah.
At the end of the day. So this part ripped.
It rips.
It's good.
And what was nuts, I've never caught this before, but the Merovingian says, I've survived your predecessors and I will survive you.
Yes.
Which I was like, oh, he has had this same experience. So what's cool is that I think there's 5 other versions of the Matrix that have happened. We're on the 6th version of the Matrix. And every other version of the Matrix, from what I understand, or this is my take, I guess, goes through the exact same. It does Matrix 1 and it does Matrix 2. But instead of him choosing the one door, he chooses the other. And then it goes back and it does Matrix 1,
I don't
Matrix
understand
2.
how that works on a human level, though.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
I guess
okay.
I shouldn't have started talking about this right here.
Yeah, because that's my big question.
But these programs, like the Merovingian, he's been in multiple Matrix.
Yeah.
So he shows up and he's like, I've done this before. I can do it again.
Yeah.
But then Neo defeats the guys, which has also happened to him. Right. So I'm sure he's like, whatever. But there is some cool stuff, and I feel like I didn't notice any CGI in this scene.
No.
Which feels like
besides the ghouls.
Yeah, but remember, they go away in the staircase. They're not in the staircase. They go chasing Trinity and Morpheus.
Yeah.
And so it's just like kind of cool because there's stuff where they're like running on walls and stuff. So and you can tell that they're real people doing it. So
yeah, it's great, and the set is really cool. So now they're like in this like mansion.
Yeah.
And so Neo defeats all of them.
Yeah.
In a spectacular display. While Trinity and Morpheus and the Keymaker run, and the Keymaker uses one of his keys to change the door to open up on a parking garage rather than something else.
I could watch a movie where there's portals and doors and they change them all day long.
Forget about it. So they make it through, but the ghoulish twins make it through as well, and Neo does not make it through in time. So he's just like stuck in this mansion, and he has to fly to get to them, which is like 500 miles away.
Yeah.
That's all super cool.
Where are they? They're 550 miles away. Send me their location. He flies off.
Yeah.
But he's out of the picture for a while.
Yeah.
And then we have the freeway chase.
Even cooler action. So they're outrunning the ghoulish twins, and they're both in cars on a freeway. So it's a pretty long action sequence.
It's very long,
but it is so fun.
The music in the sequence,
the music is also the best. My favorite part of the movie here.
It's so good.
Yeah,
but if you're gonna make an action movie, we need more freeway chase sequences. Come on, I love a good freeway chase. We have like Terminator 2 and this movie. And there needs to be more of them. We're on roads. Of course, we haven't watched Fast and Furious. Maybe there's a bunch of...
it's probably just riddled with freeways.
Probably.
So, so they both start in a car.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Trinity, Morpheus, and the Keymaker, the car's gone. Like, they have to get to a different vehicle.
Yeah.
They get to an overpass.
Yeah.
They blow up the twins... But now
Morpheus has a katana that he whips out and he's using.
And it's cool. So the twins get blown up before they can ghoulishly fly away. And now there are agents on their tail. So they jump onto a semi with a bunch of motorcycles, and it's go time.
It's go time.
Great, fun time. As you know, not very interesting to describe action. Yeah. But eventually we get to the very big part where they're Morpheus, the Keymaker, and an agent are on top of a semi fighting. One of the most thrilling fights. Yeah.
And they're trying to make sure the Keymaker doesn't fall off and stuff like that. Because I think that the agents are just like, if we just kill the Keymaker, then...
They can't get to the source.
Yeah, so then we can worry about Morpheus and Trinity. But Morpheus has a nice heroic moment. Mm-hmm. Trinity has a few heroic moments.
Neo shows up just in time to so two semis
collide into each other, slow motion.
I think that the FX is cool for this.
I think it is too,
because it's like they're making a choice. It's like stylized.
Yeah, and you can see it crumpling as the effect is going through.
So
it looks cool.
But Neo swoops in and gets the Keymaker and Morpheus before they explode too.
Yeah, and then that's the freeway scene. I can't believe that we did that in like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's very good. If you didn't watch the movie, just watch the freeway chase scene. And then also watch the movie, because the movie rules. Now, we also have one of our favorite guys shows up in this movie. A guy that last October we talked about extensively when we covered the movie Insidious Chapter 3. A guy named Leigh Whannell.
Yeah.
Director of The Invisible Man.
He makes a little appearance.
And
he's
he
on
rules.
One of the other crews.
And he dies almost instantly.
Yep.
And it's like another ship.
Yep.
And because they sent other ships to go find the Nebuchadnezzar and leave the resistance, basically.
And then they all met up, all three of these ships, and are like, this is the plan. We got to get into this building, and we only have a certain amount of time for Neo to get in with the source.
Right. So they have this big, long, convoluted plan to get into the architect. Mm-hmm. Well, the source. They don't know it's the architect yet. And there's like these ships from Zion. Leigh Whannell's on one of them, which we were just saying. And they're supposed to knock out some power, but they all die.
Yeah.
And then that leads...
Trinity to go in and fix it.
Which previously, Neo had made her promise under no circumstances, can you please not come in the Matrix?
Yeah.
Which is cool because it provides this like paradoxical thing where had she been in the Matrix, they would have failed. And so the only like her dying is inevitable. She has no control over it. And so she goes in, she does like the explosion from the beginning of the movie, but we don't quite get to the where she's about to die.
Yeah.
And then Neo goes into the hallway.
Yeah, Agent Smith shows up, hundreds of him, and Morpheus and him are fighting him off while the Keymaker is opening the door to get to the Keymaker, and they all make it through, although the Keymaker gets shot and dies.
He dies. He gives him the key.
They get rid of him. So then they give Neo the key. Morpheus goes off in a different direction, and Neo goes to the source.
Goes to the source. Then he opens it up, and much to my surprise and his surprise, it's a white room with TVs everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And he's projected on all of the TVs.
Yeah. And there's the architect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the best scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love this scene. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So he proceeds to explain a lot of things. Now, let me see if I can... He explains that Neo is an anomaly. So he is like... I mean, I think my understanding is it's like there's like a code that the AI cannot fix. And this savior complex.
Oh, okay.
And they call that... what do they call that? The prime program. So the prime program is the path of the one.
Yeah.
And so they have ways to now control said prime program.
Yeah.
But it's always there. It's an anomaly. They can't figure out how to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So we're now in the 6th cycle of the Matrix. And where it gets crazy is every Matrix has led to this point where the one shows up, and then he's given a choice, which we'll talk about in a second. But a thing that I wanted to read from Matrix 101 is this. It's very likely that the path of the one is meant to end with him or her becoming the beginning of the prophecy in each version of the Matrix. The end is the beginning. Consider what Morpheus tells Neo in the first Matrix. When the Matrix was first built, there was a man born inside that had the ability to change what he wanted, to remake the Matrix as he saw fit. It was this man who freed the first of us and taught us the truth. When he died, the Oracle prophesied his return and envisioned that his coming would hail the destruction of the Matrix. It seems likely that this, quote, man born inside is simply the previous one, fulfilling his last duty to the cycle before it begins anew.
Okay.
So I just love this idea that, yes, we have this prophecy, but the only reason the prophecy exists is because the person like restarted the Matrix and that prophecy happened already.
Yeah.
But they're not actually overcoming anything.
Right.
They're just resetting it.
Right.
Because the option that the architect gives is if he goes through one door, all of humanity dies except for 23 people.
Uh-huh.
And then they restart the Matrix.
Uh-huh.
The other option is he goes through the other door and he fights them and attempts to kill the machines, but in doing so, the machines will then go all the way down to Zion. They're only 72 hours away and kill all the humans, leaving none to spare.
And that's also the door that he says that is where Trinity is. To save Trinity, you go through that door.
Yeah.
Or to have a chance to save her, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember the architect saying anything about Trinity.
He says something about him being in love. And that to save the person he loves, he has to go, that's the door.
Because that's what's different this time.
Yeah, which I didn't catch that until you said that.
Yeah.
And then, and that's like why Neo was kind of immediately like, okay, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, he hesitates a tiny bit, but I mean, he's pretty much like, well, I'm going to save Trinity.
Which is nuts because he is choosing, he's choosing, it makes sense that the other 5 ones were like, nah, I'm going to choose the for sure survival.
Yeah.
He's choosing the maybe not survival.
Yeah.
But this makes me think. So another thing we were trying to figure out, and I'd done a little research, was the TVs all have Keanu projected on them. And I always thought in watching these movies that those were the other 5 ones and that it's always Neo, like this actual person.
Which was it's very confusing to me because it makes me think, so how is the human race being like reincarnated?
Yeah.
Basically. So
it's like, I guess in that scenario, maybe this has happened like in the last 10 years or something, and the same person is doing it because his body would eventually decay.
Right. Yeah. That was what was confusing me.
But I've read online that most people think that those are alternate reactions to what the architect is saying.
Yeah.
So it's like they're just projecting what he is thinking, basically. Different versions of what he's thinking, Neo.
Yeah.
Because the other Matrix probably had, we can maybe assume, like a different person.
Yeah.
Like I saved Matrix 1, you saved Matrix 2.
Yeah.
Etc. But what I think is interesting that I, obviously we won't know until December 22nd, but Matrix 4. So the end of this series ends with a truce between the aliens, the machines and man. But Matrix 4 begins with like at least in the trailers, you see Keanu Reeves and he's kind of like, at therapy and like things are weird and stuff like that. And he's like not in the Matrix. He's not aware of the Matrix.
Okay.
And he bumps into Trinity at a coffee shop and it doesn't seem like she's aware.
That's in
the trailer.
I have not seen the trailer.
yeah, it's cool, but it almost feels like. So is this the 7th cycle of the Matrix that we're talking about?
And if so, why?
Exactly, and if so, and is there an implication that maybe there is a Neo type, like literally, like Neo is the savior of all the Matrixes?
Yeah.
If this is the 7th cycle. And it also makes me think, I've been thinking about this a lot, which I'm sure we'll get into more. I think that this Matrix 4, as long as it goes well, will have at least one sequel to it.
Oh, okay.
I think they'll try to tell a fairly complete story, but they're not going to be like, and that's the end.
Okay.
Because
it makes too much money.
I think it's because it makes too much money, but I hope it's because Lana, I think it's Lana, I always keep forgetting because they both are Lily and Lana.
Yeah.
So I get them confused. But I hope that she does like maybe she's like, I have so many ideas that this would just be the start, which would be cool.
Yeah, not all of our eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So I mean, I would be very down for that.
Yeah.
Especially if it was like, a collector set where you have 6th cycle and 7th cycle, maybe 2 trilogies or maybe just 5 movies total. I don't know. But
let's talk about this movie though.
But yeah, so that is, right?
Well, okay,
I'm sorry.
He chooses Trinity and then Trinity dies.
Yeah.
And he saves her by basically like changing the code is how I think of it.
Yeah, he like pumps her heart literally.
He pumps her heart literally, but that you see it as a Matrix thing. So she comes back to life. He saves her life, which is cool because in the first movie she saves his life, and it's kind of like True Love's kiss, like the kiss is how it feels. But so she comes back to life. They and then so then they basically like wake up, but like Keanu is still asleep.
Yeah.
In like the hospital wing or something.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, there only was one other survivor from the other ship. And then the camera pans up and it's the guy that Agent Smith like became.
Yeah.
And then it says to be continued or something.
Included.
To be concluded.
You did miss something. But I want to say one more thing about the architect scene. Just to hammer home the whole thing that this whole movie's about is the architect is telling him and showing him that even this prophecy and what you are going to, like, you being the one is a form of control because we control that narrative, basically. So the whole movie, control.
Yeah.
Now, the big part is then Neo gets out of the ship, which I always forget that they're like, it's breathable atmosphere.
Yeah. Because the Sentinels come up and they blow up the ship. And they're running away from them, and Neo goes back, and he, as a human, defeats them, stops them.
Like with his hand. And destroys them. And that's what like puts him in a coma, basically.
That's right. And I can't really remember all that stuff in the third movie that gets wrapped up and explained.
I know.
Which is cool. But yeah, that's right. That's a big thing.
What do you... So there's a theory, and I... Because on the site I was on, it was like published like when the first or when this came out. So they hadn't seen the third one. So they're talking about like theories and stuff. But so I don't know if this theory is debunked in the next movie. I can't remember. But there's a theory that's Matrix within a Matrix.
Okay.
So that idea is that even Zion is within the Matrix.
Oh, shoot.
And humanity is like a level below that.
Shoot. That's interesting.
Also... if they did something with that, there's potential for the sequel to do something with that, Matrix 4.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty tough to pull off, I think, as far as an audience following that and it being 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth thinking about. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens.
Yeah.
Did we do it?
We did it. We need to wrap it up.
Okay, very weird because we had to record so many different times, and I think it turned out very short of an episode. But
oh, really?
Yeah, I think we're not even at an hour and a half. So I guess that just happens. I hope we covered it satisfactory. I was hoping to argue that this movie rules, and I hope that I've maybe convinced you if you didn't think that. And next week, we're going to wrap it all up with Matrix Revolutions, unless... It's Spider-Man next week. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but
okay.
That's coming up this month. So, go back and watch my Christmas show because I think it's out by now. Please, and sign up for Patreon and listen to us talk about Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
Links and description in the show notes. Links to that in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.